Where's the gold? A question that keeps being asked in this season of House of the Dragon by the new monarch, Queen Rhaenyra I. The treasury of the Iron Throne is empty, and Rhaenyra is losing control of the gold cloaks, the Red Keep, King's Landing, and her reign itself. The Greens smuggled the treasury out of the Red Keep long before it fell, and Rhaenyra is no closer to finding out where her stolen inheritance is hidden. The Blacks need to find that gold fast, or her reign will end in its infancy. That's what the Greens and Tyland Lannister were counting on. The one threat Rhaenyra can't defeat with dragonfire or her army of Rivermen and Northmen. Accounting. The smuggled treasury has been portrayed this season as a looming disaster for Rhaenyra, and the obvious question is, what happened to it? If you can reach all the way back into season 1, there's exactly one line dealing with it in episode 9. After Viserys' death and a comically short reverence for their quote-unquote friend's passing, Otto jumps right into action. He describes a gift from Viserys, his apparent insistence in his dying breath to Alicent Hightower that Aegon be his heir rather than Rhaenyra. After some very intrigued looks and furrowed brows, the Green Council jumps into action. Otto begins barking orders on how to begin securing the city and the throne for Aegon, much to the shock of some of his council. Others are less shocked, and is revealed they've been planning for some time to usurp the throne from Rhaenyra, no matter what Viserys really wanted. There's some smaller orders and actions taken, like trying to replace Captain of the Gold Cloaks, but the big one comes from the extremely ready to betray Rhaenyra, Sir Tyland Lannister, the Master of Ships. Tyland says this: "The treasury is well in hand, the gold will be divided for safekeeping." And that's the last we hear of what happened to the wealth of the Iron Throne until this season, when Rhaenyra and her council discover that the treasury is as empty as the bellies of her citizens. The Blacks are so desperate that Daemon went to the Vale and infamously was called a beggar by the highly amused Lady Jane Eyre when he demanded tribute to the crown for soldiers that were never sent. So what became of that gold? In the show, it's presented as a puzzle for the viewer to deduce, make some educated guesses, and see if you are clever enough to notice where it went. Unfortunately, combing through the evidence, they didn't really give enough information in the show to really figure it out. So we're just gonna go to Fire and Blood for the answer, where it's not presented as a mystery in the slightest. Sir Tyland Lannister was named Master of Coin in place of the late Lord Beesbury, and acted at once to seize the royal treasury. The crown's gold was divided into 4 parts. One part was entrusted to the care of the Iron Bank of Braavos for safekeeping, another sent under strong guard to Casterly Rock, a third to Oldtown. The remaining wealth was to be used for bribes and gifts and to hire sellswords if needed. I'm gonna give a very big caveat here. The show plot about Tyland is substantially different from the book, so there's always a possibility the show is gonna throw us a curveball. Based on what I've seen, the book information isn't contradicted for the treasury, so I'm gonna go with it for now. On to the next question: why were these 4 locations chosen? Let's go through them and find out. First, Casterly Rock, the home of House Lannister. Now this is an obvious choice for Sir Tyland, as his twin brother Jason was lord of their house until the Winter Wolves relieved him of his head. There's no one Tyland would trust more with the gold than his own family. But there's some subtler reasons as well. By stashing a quarter of the gold within his house and being in charge of all of the locations, Tyland has made himself an indispensable part of the Green faction. No matter how badly he screws up or he angers his new king, Tyland holds the keys to their wealth, and the crown knows it. If they ever want to see that money again without conflict, they will have to keep Tyland loyal and happy. He has also established the Lannisters as a pseudo-bank to the Iron Throne, something the Lannisters have dreamed about for generations. You control the gold of the crown, and you can very easily direct its actions. Tyland has made himself bank manager of the first bank of Casterly Rock. Using Casterly Rock gives Tyland flexibility no matter who wins. Should the Greens prevail, well, of course, they just return the gold to the treasury, a job well done. But if the Blacks and Rhaenyra win, this gives House Lannister a most valuable hostage: the gold itself. The gold can be traded back for their lives, pardons, even favors if they have to be. It's a very shrewd defensive measure for Tyland and his house. And if the war ends and no one remembers that the gold was taken at all, or maybe Tyland takes it to his grave, well, it's easy enough to launder into the enormous gold vaults of the Lannisters like it was never there. Second location, Oldtown. Most likely carved out as a hiding spot by Otto himself, and it makes a lot of sense. The dividing of the treasury is a defensive measure that protects against the fall of King's Landing. Don't keep your dragon eggs in one basket. By stashing a quarter of the gold in Oldtown, it creates an obvious secondary capital for resistance. While this is framed as a war within House Targaryen, the Greens really are being backed by the Hightower, so it makes sense as a backup capital for the Greens. As well, the Hightowers can still fight the war from afar using the gold from the treasury rather than draining their own. And surely the crown would forgive them using some of the gold if it wins the war, right? More importantly for Tyland in particular, it demonstrates loyalty from him to Otto and the Hightower forces. Rather than sending it all to Casterly Rock where it could disappear, Tyland shows submission and good faith in his choice. He has proved his worth and commitment to the cause in the face of tremendous temptation in the biggest pile of gold you've ever seen. And of course, the same hostage and pardon logic works just as well for the Hightowers as Casterly Rock. Third location, the Iron Bank, which is a very shrewd choice. While Casterly Rock and Oldtown are safer than most places, they are still within the reach of Rhaenyra should she seek to withdraw her inheritance with fire and blood. The Iron Bank is the most secure location in the world to store wealth. The bank is built into subterranean vaults made from abandoned iron mines when Braavos was first founded. It is by far the most powerful bank in all of the world. Their influence can humble and topple kings across the planet if the bank is displeased. Never mind the faceless men of Braavos who have a cozy relationship with the bank, to say the least. There's a saying, the Iron Bank will have its due. Do not cross them. This serves as Tyland's backup plan, the most secure place to stash the money and the hardest to find. It's not like you can just walk up to the Iron Bank and ask if they're holding the crown's gold. In the event Aegon and the Greens themselves have to flee Westeros entirely and cannot retrieve the gold from the Lannisters or the Hightowers, they can make a quick exit to Braavos and live a very comfortable life on Viserys' gold. Or mayhaps get aggressive and hire some mercenary companies to try and win the Iron Throne by surprise and force. The money being with the Iron Bank offers an interesting question though. Who can actually withdraw the funds? As we saw in Game of Thrones, the Iron Bank makes financial decisions based on who it thinks will be the most profitable, not necessarily the rightful person. They rejected Stannis Baratheon's pleas outright at first, changing their mind after an impassioned speech from Sir Davos. So is it only Tyland that can retrieve the deposit? Could Aegon claim the gold? Aemond? Or even Rhaenyra if she makes a compelling argument about the prospects of her reign like Davos did for Stannis? And fourth, the last quarter used on bribes and expenses. This is gold that cannot be retrieved, it is just gone. All the while they were under siege, Aegon and his council were spending it while they were in power on the war effort and trying to combat Rhaenyra's blockade of Blackwater Bay, which created massive shortages across the city. Now somehow Tyland has enough on him to hire mercenaries when you see him at Rook's Rest, and Larys left with a sizable pouch of coins as well. There also appears to be hints that there was money set aside for agents remaining in the city to harass Rhaenyra. Larys' agents are painting graffiti and leading Daemon to Otto Hightower, and Ormond's bribes are activating what appears to be a pre-existing network of Green supporters in the city. The gold is gone, but it appears to be a very sound investment so far. So that leads us to the next question. How can Rhaenyra get the gold back? Her best option is through the people who know about it. Top of the list, Tyland Lannister. He was Master of Coin after the murder of Lyman Beesbury, and Orwyle and Alicent both said he would know where the gold was when questioned by Rhaenyra. Unfortunately, Tyland was very dead and drowned in the gullet after being shoved off the Triarchy ship by Shirako Lohar. But somehow, Tyland has returned, and with him comes knowledge of the Treasury, which is why, once word got out that he had survived, Tyland became the most wanted man in Westeros outside of Aemond One-Eye. In Fire and Blood, this is very different. Tyland did not go to Essos and mud wrestle with Shirako Lohar. Instead, he was captured when Rhaenyra took King's Landing with the rest of the court. When Tyland would not give up the location of the gold, he was brutally tortured. They cut out his eyes, gelded him, and removed other bits he would miss. None of it worked though. Maimed and blinded, Tyland still refused to give up the gold and found himself in the black cells. So we got that to look forward to. We'll see if the show is up to torturing Tyland for gold as well. Named by Orwyle as well was the late Jasper Wilde, aka Ironrod, as a conspirator. Whether or not that's true, his usefulness ended when Daemon decapitated him in the throne room. Whoops. Speaking of Grand Maester Orwyle, he may know a lot more than he lets on. While he claims to Rhaenyra that he had no knowledge of what Tyland and Ironrod did with the gold, he was in those council meetings where plans to usurp Rhaenyra were being made in advance. Maybe he's being genuine and they kept that information from him, but notice Orwyle also didn't offer any guesses or suspicions. He was a willing collaborator with the Green Council the whole way, and even was delivering moon tea to Alicent under Rhaenyra's nose. I suspect that Orwyle probably has some educated guesses on where the gold went that he's just not sharing. Alicent herself is less valuable as an information source. She was not a part of the efforts to usurp the crown for Aegon in advance. In the infamous Green Council referenced earlier, she was shocked to find out what the council had been doing behind her back. So when she tells Rhaenyra she doesn't know where the gold is, I believe her more than Orwyle. However, again, she's not giving up more information than she has to. She knows that Orwyle's a part of the pre-planning and was at the meeting where Tyland revealed he had already moved the gold. Alicent could have ratted Orwyle out and chose not to. Might be why he's been helping her while still in captivity. Her silence may have saved him from the fate of Book Tyland if Rhaenyra thought he really knew where the gold was. The last person who may know more than they let on is, of course, Larys Strong. Did you think I was going to go a whole season without talking about Larys Strong? While he wasn't officially Master of Whispers during the Green Council, he was already entrenching himself within the castle itself and served as one of the torturers. It's in that same episode 9 that he uses his spies and fireflies to try and kill Mysaria while absorbing her spy network. Larys at the time should have had the resources and contacts to know that the treasury had been moved and where it went. There's some hint of that as well in his interactions with Tyland. Tyland seems highly suspicious of how much Larys wants to go to Braavos with Aegon and questions his motives. Might be that Larys knows where the most easily accessible gold from the treasury is, as well as Braavos being quite a bit safer than Rook's Rest. An innocent possibility here is that Larys also did the same plan as Otto and Tyland. Well ahead of the war, Larys emptied Harrenhal of all its gold and riches and sent the vast majority to the Iron Bank. That is why Simon Strong has nothing to offer Daemon. The castle was stripped bare by Larys after he inherited it. So that's reasonable for why Larys would think Braavos is a good place to go. He already has a big pile of gold sitting in the Iron Bank waiting for him. But I wouldn't count out that he's aware where the treasury gold is and wondering if he just needs to present Aegon to open the vaults. He may have been inspired by the plan if he heard about the treasury smuggling as well to empty Harrenhal, or the other way around. Maybe he's the one that suggested it to Otto after doing it for himself. The main problem here for Rhaenyra is that she already has in captivity two people who likely know more than they're saying about the gold's location, and neither has buckled under her questioning. Across the board, silence remains the best tactic for all involved until Rhaenyra demonstrates why it is in their best interests to loosen their tongues by bribes or threats. But it's probably already too late for Rhaenyra even if she finds the gold. The trap has already been snapped shut on her. While it looks like greed on the part of the Greens to loot the Red Keep ahead of time, it was actually an incredibly clever and devastating plan that has crippled her reign days into its beginning. Even if she did find out where the gold is, how would she even reclaim it? Is she gonna sack Oldtown and Casterly Rock across the continent? Send an invasion fleet she no longer has to crack open the Iron Bank? There's no way of getting the gold back that isn't too costly, too dangerous, paints her as a tyrant, and takes months longer than she has to stabilize her rule. Even if she finds the gold, it's effectively gone. The reason they did this is it attacks Rhaenyra where she is actually the weakest. Not at her dragons or her armies, instead her ability to govern and wield the reins of power. Rhaenyra has the military might on her side with the Velaryons, the Rivermen, the Winter Wolves, and her dragons. She, unfortunately though, is a relative novice at actually administering the kingdom, a byproduct of neglect from Viserys, and her leaving the royal court to protect her sons from being discovered as bastards. The Greens are well aware from their long time in power how ruinously expensive and demanding King's Landing and the Seven Kingdoms are. Managing them is a nightmare beyond the capabilities of most nobles. It is the largest city by far in Westeros and has a huge poor population that in war times often becomes unruly as food and money run out. The city itself eats gold, patience, and sanity like it is a black hole for rulers. In many ways, it's a lot like managing Harrenhal. I made a video on this exact topic a few years ago where I detailed how Harrenhal's real curse is economics. Links will be in the corner in the description if you want to check it out. They also know that Rhaenyra has few natural incomes of her own on Dragonstone. As you may remember when Tycho Nestoris dressed down Stannis, the island of Dragonstone produces few resources and even less taxes. Dragonstone survives on local fishing catches and importing food. It grows no crops. The majority of lords in the Crownlands don't pay taxes to Dragonstone, they pay it to King's Landing. Most of the island's income comes from the crown, which is given to the heir on Dragonstone as an allowance of gold to support their lifestyle and castle. With the war on, the gold and food have stopped flowing, draining the gold reserves. Dragonstone also has few vassals to manage and few people other than the castle staff. Managing Dragonstone prepares her for managing King's Landing and the Seven Kingdoms in the same way that hitting a baseball off a tee in a Little League game prepares you to try and hit a fastball from Shohei Ohtani. What this means overall is that Rhaenyra is not funding her own war effort. It's coming from Corlys Velaryon. Corlys is a very wealthy man from his voyages and shrewd trading empire. However, even his gold reserves would run dry trying to maintain the enormous cost of King's Landing, as well as a war. Depriving Rhaenyra of the royal treasury means that she has to rely on whatever is left on Dragonstone, which, as we found out, is almost nothing, and Corlys. The financial strain of Corlys bankrolling the Seven Kingdoms would have caused considerable friction down the road, although I think he would have stomached it to get a family member on the Iron Throne. Or at least a supposed family member. The Greens here caught a break when the Triarchy pirates sacked Driftmark and stole most of Corlys' wealth, as well as destroying most of his fleet. The population is starving as well, so there's little to no tax coming in from the increasingly angry population. And with the realm in open rebellion, lords are withholding their tribute until they're sure who will win, unless they're compelled to, like Jane Eyre was by Daemon. The goal here, well in advance, was always to limit Rhaenyra's ability to actually rule should she take the city. The Count of the Dragons at the start of the war favored Rhaenyra, and it still does even after the losses of Vermax, Meleys, and Arax. The Greens correctly surmised in advance that Rhaenyra would take the city at some point if they failed to assassinate her or negotiate a surrender, and made sure that conquest would be a financial disaster rife with sabotage. And while she would be struggling to handle King's Landing, they would be outside the city with the crown's gold waiting for her to self-destruct under the pressure. It's exactly the kind of warfare Ormond laid out in his plan with Tumbleton, and similar to the one used by Mariah Martell and the Dornish when they defeated Aegon the Conqueror. The basic idea is that when your enemy has overwhelming forces like a bunch of dragons, you fight where they're vulnerable and wait them out. In Rhaenyra's case, it's her inexperience with actual governance that's her weak spot. It made sense to go into the war with only the treasury of Corlys Velaryon financing it. He has a huge war chest and the troops and navy to win it. But that plan has no backups. If Corlys backs out or his wealth is somehow lost, Rhaenyra doesn't actually have the resources to keep fighting. What she should have done, and the Greens counted on that she wouldn't, was take out loans from the Iron Bank herself. Her inexperience with ruling didn't prepare her for the realities of war and what King's Landing requires of its monarch in resources and leadership, so she did not have a backup plan to the Velaryon gold. The Greens, they had backup plans and backup plans to backup plans. Instead, Rhaenyra has found herself in a quagmire of epic proportions. She has no gold, she has lost the Velaryon's wealth and Corlys' favor, and every poor decision she's making under duress is turning her people against her, with significant help from Ormond and Larys' agents. It makes the Greens' core argument for them. Rhaenyra is incapable of ruling and never should have been heir at all. Of course, leaving out that they engineered a trap to make sure she was encouraged to fail at every opportunity, and conveniently forgetting that Aegon was a similar disaster as a monarch. It's why the Greens will hold on to that gold as long as they can. It's their best weapon against Rhaenyra that is doing more damage than even Vhagar has. You may be asking, how does this resolve in Fire and Blood? Now, there are some pretty big spoilers here, so skip ahead to the time on the screen if you don't want to know what happens. In Fire and Blood, the gold is never retrieved officially. The Lannister quarter of the gold is paid out by Lady Joanna Lannister to buy Tyland's freedom and a pardon, as well as an order to the Ironborn to stop attacking the Westerlands. The Hightower quarter of the Treasury disappears, and there's no indication it was ever repaid in the text. The same story for the Iron Bank. Seemingly that gold may be on deposit still. It would be extremely funny if the Iron Bank neglects to tell future Westerosi monarchs about the gold and loans them back their own gold with interest. The Iron Bank will have its due. We find out that Tyland is reinstalled as Master of Coin when Aegon II retakes his throne and serves as Hand of the King for Aegon III. Now, it is reasonable to assume that he may have recovered the Hightower and Iron Bank gold. It's just not explicitly stated that he does so. To wrap this up, many people think that ruling and winning wars is about armies marching, dragons flying, and the best warrior flashing their steel around the battlefield. Spectacular victories and dragonfire roasting battlefields is what the bards sing songs of. Know what no one sings songs about? Counting coppers, as Robert Baratheon called it. It's much easier to win a war than turn that victory into stable rule. Aegon the Conqueror learned that lesson when Dorne beat him not on the battlefield by attacking his weak point as well. Aegon's ability to govern his new conquests and testing his patience. Attacking Balerion is a fool's errand, the same as trying to beat Rhaenyra in the sky. Shrewd stewardship and maintaining a healthy treasury is by far the most underrated factor in who wins and loses in wars, and a reality the Blacks are currently failing at. Rhaenyra finds herself in a similar situation to her ancestor Aegon. She's won the Iron Throne, but turning that victory into stability is something her enemies ensured would be as difficult as possible when they smuggled her inheritance out of King's Landing. She had no idea that her greatest glory would be spoiled by a trap set months ago in a small council room rather than a threat on the battlefield. I hope you enjoyed this look at where the Iron Throne's gold has gone as much as I did. In the comments in this video, answer this conundrum for me. Would Rhaenyra have succeeded even if she did have the treasury? If you're looking for something else to watch next, I can recommend another look at medieval economics and how it is overlooked. This video here on the real curses of Harrenhal. Also, like and subscribe for more of this kind of content and more from A Song of Ice and Fire and A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.